An exhausted mother dozed off on the shoulder of a wealthy businessman while waiting in a long bank line, but his next move stunned everyone and changed her life in an instant. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Jennifer Collins checked her watch for the 5th time in 20 minutes. 7:43. He was late, again. She adjusted the small vase of daisies on her coffee table, then crossed to the window of her Brooklyn apartment, peering down at the street below. No sign of his sleek black Audi. The apartment was clean but modest, mismatched furniture collected from thrift stores and estate sales, a bookshelf overflowing with teaching materials, walls that needed a fresh coat of paint. She'd spent her entire Sunday preparing for tonight, scrubbing the bathroom until it gleamed, changing her sheets with the only good set she owned, cooking his favorite pasta. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched the small plastic stick hidden in her pocket. Positive. 2 pink lines that had appeared so quickly there wasn't even time to pray for a different result. The buzzer finally rang at 8:12. Jennifer pressed the intercom. "Hello? It's me," came the clipped response. When she opened her apartment door, Marcus Blackwood stood in the hallway, tall and impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. At 32, he was the heir to one of Manhattan's largest real estate fortunes and the newly appointed CEO of Blackwood Properties, an empire valued in the hundreds of millions. "You're late," she said softly. Marcus didn't apologize, nor did he kiss her as he usually did. Instead, he stepped past her into the apartment, his gaze sweeping over the space with barely concealed disdain. "Traffic," he said dismissively, loosening his tie. "I had the quarterly board meeting." Jennifer closed the door, her heart hammering in her chest. "I made your favorite pasta." Marcus checked his watch, a Patek Philippe that gleamed on his wrist. "I already ate." "Oh." She folded her arms across her chest. "That's okay. We need to talk anyway." Something in her tone made him look at her properly for the first time since arriving. His dark eyes narrowed slightly. "What is it? You're acting strange." Jennifer sat on the edge of her sofa, gathering her courage. This wasn't how she'd imagined telling him. In her daydreams, there had been wine, maybe candles, certainly not this cold distance between them. "I'm pregnant," she said, pulling the test from her pocket with trembling fingers. 6 weeks, according to this. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus stood completely still, his expression transitioning from surprise to something colder, more calculated. He ran a hand through his perfectly cut dark hair. "You're sure?" he asked finally, his voice clinical. Jennifer nodded. "I took 3 tests." Marcus walked to the window that overlooked the noisy Brooklyn street below. Car horns and distant sirens filtered through the thin glass. He stood with his back to her, shoulders rigid beneath his expensive suit. "Are you sure it's mine?" The words hit Jennifer like a physical blow. 6 months of relationship reduced to an accusation. "How can you ask me that?" she whispered, tears threatening. He turned back to face her, his expression unreadable. "It's a reasonable question." "No, Marcus, it's not." Her voice shook with hurt and indignation. "You know I haven't been with anyone else." He sighed heavily, as if dealing with a particularly difficult business negotiation. "This can't happen, Jen. Not now. The board is about to name me executive chairman. A scandal would ruin everything." "Scandal?" The word felt foreign on her tongue. "We're talking about a baby, Marcus. Our baby." "Let's be realistic," he said, his tone softening artificially. "You're lovely, Jennifer, but you would never fit into my world. My family has expectations. My investors have expectations." "I'm not asking to fit into your world," she said. "I'm telling you I'm pregnant." Marcus moved closer, sitting in the armchair across from her. "I understand this is difficult, but we need to think practically. My reputation." "Your reputation?" Jennifer's voice rose. "What about this child's life?" "There doesn't have to be a child," he said quietly. Jennifer stared at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. The man she'd fallen in love with, who had pursued her relentlessly after meeting her at a charity event where she was volunteering, who had whispered words of adoration just last weekend. He couldn't be this cold, calculating stranger. "I love you," she said, one last desperate appeal. "I thought you loved me too." Marcus's face hardened. "Love isn't the issue here, Jennifer. The issue is practicality. You're a primary school teacher. I'm the CEO of a company worth hundreds of millions. These worlds don't mix." Then came the words that would burn themselves into Jennifer's memory. "You're a burden to me, Jen. You'll never be sophisticated enough for the world I belong to. This baby would ruin my reputation. You're not worth the risk of tarnishing the Blackwood name." The cruelty of his words left her breathless, as if he'd physically struck her. Tears spilled down her cheeks as Marcus reached inside his Italian linen jacket and pulled out a checkbook. "I'll take care of this. Discreetly. I know doctors who—" "Get out," Jennifer whispered, tears now flowing freely. "Don't be irrational," he said, uncapping an expensive fountain pen. $50,000. Take care of the problem, start fresh somewhere else. He wrote the check with practiced efficiency, tore it from the book and placed it on her coffee table. Jennifer stared at it for a long moment before picking it up and ripping it into pieces. "Get out of my house!" she screamed, the sound tearing from somewhere deep and primal inside her. Marcus stood, adjusting his cuffs as if concluding a particularly unpleasant business deal. "You'll regret this, Jennifer. You have no idea what it takes to raise a child alone, especially on your insignificant salary. You're condemning both of you to mediocrity." He walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. For a brief moment, Jennifer thought he might turn back, might transform back into the man she thought she knew. Instead, he straightened his shoulders and left without another word. The door closed with a soft click that felt more final than a slam. Jennifer collapsed onto the floor, her body shaking with sobs. The reality of her situation crashed down on her with brutal clarity. $236 in her bank account, rent already 2 weeks late, and now, a life growing inside her. Through her tears, she caught sight of the torn pieces of Marcus's check scattered on the floor like confetti. $50,000. The price he'd put on their child's life, on her dignity. Hours later, exhausted from crying, Jennifer dragged herself to her small bathroom. The face that stared back from the mirror was pale and swollen, eyes red-rimmed. She splashed cold water on her face and placed a protective hand over her still flat stomach. "Just you and me now," she whispered to the tiny life inside her. "But we'll be okay. I promise." She knew the promises would be hard to keep. Her teacher's salary barely covered her rent and student loans. The school year had just begun, making it impossible to find a new teaching position if she had to move. And in a few months, she'd be showing, making new employment even more difficult to secure. Jennifer made it to her bed and curled onto her side, mind racing through limited options. She could ask her parents for help, but they were barely getting by themselves, her father's health issues draining their modest savings. Her few close friends were fellow teachers, equally stretched thin by New York's brutal cost of living. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by nightmares where Marcus laughed as she drowned in rising water. When morning finally arrived, Jennifer called in sick to work for the first time in her teaching career. She couldn't face 25 energetic third graders while her own life was imploding. Instead, she made a list. First priority, figure out health insurance coverage for prenatal care. Second, calculate exactly how many months she could stay in this apartment before her savings ran out completely. Third, look for a cheaper place to live, possibly with roommates willing to accept a pregnant woman and, eventually, a newborn. By noon, the practical tasks had given her something to focus on beyond the crushing pain of Marcus's betrayal. She'd never truly believed his world of wealth and privilege would become hers, but she'd believed in him, in the person she thought he was beneath the expensive suits and family name. As the afternoon sun slanted through her windows, Jennifer forced herself to eat a slice of toast, knowing she needed to keep up her strength. The thought of the growing life inside her pushed through the fog of despair. This child hadn't asked to be conceived, hadn't asked for a father who could discard it so callously. "He's wrong about us," she whispered, a spark of defiance igniting within her. "We're not burdens. We're not problems to be solved." That evening, she returned to her list, adding a fourth item: find a second job, and a fifth: research night classes to improve her credentials, perhaps move into educational administration where the pay was better. When exhaustion finally claimed her again, Jennifer slept more soundly, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. In her dreams, she no longer drowned. Instead, she climbed, slowly, painfully, but steadily upward toward a distant light. She couldn't have known that 15 years later, she would be commanding $1 billion company, while Marcus Blackwood would be begging for a chance to know the daughter he had rejected. Jennifer forced herself to stand, her legs feeling like lead as she made her way to her bathroom. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus walked out of her life, and the morning sickness had become relentless. She rinsed her mouth, avoiding her reflection in the mirror. The eviction notice taped to her door yesterday had made her decision inevitable. She couldn't afford this apartment anymore. The small cardboard box in her living room contained the last of her possessions: photo albums, a few books, the ceramic mug her students had given her last Christmas. Everything else had been sold in a desperate attempt to gather enough for first month's rent on the tiny room in Queens she'd found through a teaching colleague's cousin. "It's just temporary," she whispered to herself, resting a hand on her still flat stomach. "Just until we figure things out." The landlord had been surprisingly understanding when she explained her situation, even allowing her to break the lease without penalty. Perhaps it was the pallor of her skin or the dark circles under her eyes that earned his sympathy. Or maybe he simply didn't want the hassle of formally evicting a pregnant schoolteacher. Jennifer took one last look around the apartment where her life had shattered 3 weeks ago. The ghost of Marcus still lingered here, his voice, his cruel words, the torn check pieces she'd swept up the morning after. She closed the door without regret. The room in Queens was exactly as advertised, minuscule, with peeling paint and a bed that sagged in the middle. A single window overlooked an air shaft, providing minimal natural light. The bathroom was shared with 2 other tenants on the same floor, but the rent was manageable, even on her tight budget. "Home sweet home," she murmured, setting down her box. The sound echoed in the empty space. That evening she sat on her bed with her laptop, creating a budget spreadsheet. Her teacher's salary would cover rent and basic necessities, but barely. Prenatal care, baby supplies, childcare, all of these loomed as insurmountable expenses. She needed a second income, and soon. The following Monday, Jennifer stood before her 3rd grade class with a forced smile. "Good morning, everyone. Who's ready to learn about multiplication today?" 25 eager faces looked back at her, blissfully unaware of their teacher's private turmoil. For those 6 hours, Jennifer could almost forget her problems, losing herself in lessons and children's laughter. But in the teacher's lounge during lunch, reality intruded. "You look exhausted, Jen," observed Clara, a fellow teacher. "Everything okay?" "Just not sleeping well," Jennifer replied, avoiding eye contact as she microwaved her cheap cup noodles, all she could afford for lunch these days. That afternoon, she began her job search, applying for evening and weekend positions that wouldn't conflict with teaching. Her criteria were simple: flexible hours, no heavy lifting that might endanger her pregnancy, and preferably tips. 3 days and 7 interviews later, she was hired as an evening waitress at a family restaurant in Queens, not far from her new room. Her first night was a baptism by fire. "Order up for table 7." The cook called as Jennifer struggled to balance 3 plates on her arm as she'd been hastily shown. "I've got a spill on table 4, another waitress shouted. Jennifer's feet ached in the sensible but worn shoes she'd bought at a thrift store. The uniform, black slacks and white button-up shirt, was slightly too tight across her midsection, a reminder of the life growing inside her. A customer snapped his fingers to get her attention. "Hey, sweetheart, we've been waiting for our check for 10 minutes. By closing time at 11:30, Jennifer's legs trembled with fatigue. She counted her tips, $37.43, and felt a mix of despair and determination. It wasn't much, but it was something. Every dollar brought her one step closer to financial stability for her child. The weeks blurred together in a punishing routine. Teach from 8 to 3, rush home for a quick change, waitress from 4 to 11, collapse into bed, repeat. On weekends, she worked double shifts at the restaurant. The morning sickness gradually subsided, replaced by bone-deep exhaustion that no amount of sleep could cure. At 4 months pregnant, Jennifer's body began to change noticeably. She let out the waistband of her skirts and bought loose-fitting tops at consignment shops. Her principal, Dr. Harriet Wilson, called her into the office one afternoon. "Jennifer, is there something you want to tell me?" she asked gently. There was no point denying it anymore. "I'm pregnant," Jennifer admitted. "Due in October." Dr. Wilson nodded. "I suspected as much. Will the father be involved?" Jennifer's eyes burned with unshed tears. "No, he's not in the picture." "I see." The older woman's face softened. "The school board can't terminate you for pregnancy, but I should warn you. Maternity leave is mostly unpaid, and your health insurance coverage has significant gaps." "I know," Jennifer said quietly. "I've been researching my options." By her 6th month, concealing her condition at the restaurant became impossible. Her feet and ankles swelled so badly that by the end of each shift, she could barely stand. The restaurant manager, a father of 3 himself, took pity on her and assigned her to the less physically demanding register position when possible. "You're working yourself to death," he observed one night as Jennifer massaged her swollen feet during a rare, quiet moment. "The baby's father can't help out?" "There is no father," she replied with finality, the words practiced from repetition. July brought sweltering heat that made the tiny room in Queens nearly uninhabitable. Jennifer spent as many hours as possible in air-conditioned public libraries, researching childcare options and applying for every assistance program available. Her rejection letters accumulated. Too much income for some programs, not enough documented need for others. One particularly hot evening, Jennifer's fellow teachers organized a small baby shower in Clara's apartment. "We know you said not to make a fuss," Clara said, guiding Jennifer to a decorated chair, "but we couldn't let this baby arrive without celebrating." The gifts were modest but thoughtful: onesies, diapers, a second-hand stroller that Clara's sister had refurbished. The most precious gift came from the entire teaching staff: a beautiful wooden crib and enough money to cover 3 months of a part-time babysitter. "We took up a collection," explained Dr. Wilson, pressing an envelope into Jennifer's hand. "Everyone contributed what they could." Jennifer wept openly, overwhelmed by the kindness. "I don't know how to thank you all." "You'd do the same for any of us," Clara said simply. That night, despite her exhaustion, Jennifer felt a flicker of hope for the first time in months. Perhaps she could make this work after all. The next evening, after a grueling dinner shift, Jennifer walked past a newsstand on her way to the subway. A familiar face on the cover of New York Business stopped her cold. Marcus Blackwood smiled confidently beside a stunning blonde woman, both dressed in evening wear. The headline read, "Blackwood announces business and personal merger." With trembling hands, Jennifer bought the magazine and read the article on the subway ride home. Marcus was engaged to Sophia Verlaine, heiress to a hotel chain. The article quoted him, "Sophia understands the demands and responsibilities that come with the Blackwood name. We share the same values and vision for the future." In her stifling room, Jennifer flung the magazine against the wall, then sank to the floor, shoulders heaving with sobs. The baby kicked vigorously, as if protesting her distress. "I'm sorry," she whispered, caressing her swollen belly. "I'm so sorry you got him as a father." She cried until no more tears would come, then crawled onto her bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. The smiling faces of Marcus and his perfect, wealthy fiancé seemed burned into her retinas. While she was working double shifts with swollen ankles and barely making rent, he was planning a society wedding, his abandonment already forgotten. Something shifted inside Jennifer that night, something fundamental and irreversible. Wiping her face, she sat up and reached for her laptop. She navigated to the website of the local university that offered night classes. MBA programs, she typed in the search bar. Scrolling through the requirements, she felt a strange calm replace her earlier despair. Marcus believed she was condemning herself and her child to mediocrity. He was wrong. The next morning, Jennifer requested an appointment with the university's admissions office. 3 days later, she sat across from an administrative assistant who reviewed her transcript with raised eyebrows. "Your undergraduate record is impressive, Ms. Collins," the woman said, "but the MBA program is demanding. Evening classes 4 nights a week, group projects, internship requirements." "I understand," Jennifer replied. The assistant glanced at Jennifer's obvious pregnancy. "And you're expecting? When?" "October. May I speak frankly? I've seen many students try to juggle full-time work, family responsibilities, and our program. Most don't make it through the first semester." Jennifer met the woman's eyes steadily. "I don't have a choice. I either grow or I sink." Something in her tone must have conveyed her determination, because the assistant nodded slowly and handed her an application packet. "Fall semester begins in September. You'll need 3 letters of recommendation and a statement of purpose." As Jennifer's due date approached, her body rebelled against the punishing schedule she'd maintained. Her blood pressure rose, prompting her obstetrician to order reduced hours at work. Reluctantly, Jennifer cut back to weekend-only shifts at the restaurant, depleting her modest savings to cover the shortfall. She completed her MBA application between contractions in the hospital, determined to submit it before the extended deadline. Dr. Wilson had written a glowing recommendation, as had 2 professors from her undergraduate days. Her personal statement was brutally honest. A single mother determined to create a better future for her child through education and entrepreneurship. On October 12th, after 14 hours of labor with only Clara by her side, Olivia Collins entered the world. 7 pounds, 4 ounces of perfection, with a full head of dark hair and piercing eyes that painfully recalled her father's. "Hello, my love," Jennifer whispered, cradling her daughter for the first time. Exhaustion and joy mingled with a fierce, protective love that took her breath away. "It's just you and me against the world." As the nurse took Olivia for routine measurements, Jennifer gazed out the hospital window at the Manhattan skyline in the distance. Somewhere out there, Marcus Blackwood was probably in his corner office, or perhaps planning his wedding, utterly unaware that his daughter had just been born. "One day he'll regret abandoning us," she promised herself. "Not because I want revenge, but because he'll miss knowing someone as extraordinary as you." While Jennifer cradled her newborn daughter in the stark hospital room, planning their uncertain future, she couldn't know that her simple MBA application would be the first step in building an empire that would one day make Marcus Blackwood's achievements seem insignificant by comparison. The contractions started at 3 in the morning. Jennifer awoke with a gasp, clutching her swollen belly as pain radiated through her lower back. She fumbled for her phone in the darkness of her tiny queen's room, dialing Clara's number with trembling fingers. "It's time," she whispered when her friend answered. 2 hours later, Jennifer lay in the hospital's delivery room, gripping the metal rails of the bed as another contraction tore through her. Clara stood beside her, wiping sweat from her brow with a cool cloth. "You're doing great, Jen," Clara encouraged. "Just breathe through it." Jennifer had imagined this moment differently. In her dreams, Marcus would be here, holding her hand, his eyes filled with anticipation rather than the cold dismissal she couldn't forget. Instead, she had Clara, a friend who'd known her less than a year but showed more loyalty than the man who'd helped create this child. 14 hours later, exhausted beyond anything she'd ever experienced, Jennifer gave one final push. The room filled with the indignant wail of new life. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, placing the squirming, vernix-covered infant on Jennifer's chest. Time stopped. Through tears of exhaustion and wonder, Jennifer gazed at her daughter's face, perfect in every detail, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that, when they briefly opened, showed the same penetrating quality that had once captivated her in Marcus's gaze. "Hello, my love," Jennifer whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. She traced a finger over the tiny features, marveling at the miniature perfection of her daughter's nose, her lips, her impossibly small fingernails. "It's just you and me against the world." As the nurse took the baby for measurements and cleaning, Jennifer stared out the window at the Manhattan skyline glittering in the distance. Somewhere in one of those gleaming towers, Marcus Blackwood was going about his day, utterly unaware that he had just become a father. "One day, he'll regret abandoning us," she murmured. "Not because I want revenge, but because he'll miss knowing someone as extraordinary as you." When the nurse returned with her daughter, swaddled tightly in a hospital blanket, Jennifer asked for a birth certificate form. "Have you chosen a name?" the nurse asked. Jennifer nodded. Olivia Collins." She hesitated over the father's name section, pen hovering above the blank line. After a moment's contemplation, she wrote Marcus Blackwood in her neat handwriting. Not for him, he'd forfeited any right to claim this child, but for Olivia, who might someday want to know where she came from. 5 days later, Jennifer carried Olivia into their small room in Queens. The space seemed even more cramped now, with the second-hand crib wedged between the bed and the wall and boxes of diapers stacked in the corner. But looking down at her daughter's peaceful, sleeping face, Jennifer felt a fierce determination unlike anything she'd experienced before. "We're home, sweet girl," she whispered. "It's not much, but we'll make it better. I promise." The first weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights and endless feedings. Jennifer's body ached with exhaustion as she struggled to recover from childbirth while caring for a newborn around the clock. Her savings dwindled rapidly. Medical expenses not covered by insurance, diapers, formula to supplement when her milk supply proved insufficient. 2 weeks after Olivia's birth, Jennifer stood in the bathroom staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her unwashed hair hung limply around her pale face. In just a few hours, she was expected back in her third-grade classroom. Her 6 weeks of maternity leave, mostly unpaid, had been reduced to 2 out of financial necessity. "You can do this," she told her reflection, though doubt clouded her eyes. The Senora Rodriguez, a retired nurse who lived down the hall, had agreed to watch Olivia during school hours for a fee that consumed nearly half of Jennifer's teaching salary. It was still cheaper than any daycare center in the city. That first morning of separation was torture. Jennifer kissed Olivia's downy head repeatedly, inhaling her sweet baby scent, reluctant to leave despite Senora Rodriguez's gentle assurances. "She will be fine," the older woman promised in her accented English. "Babies are stronger than we think." "I've pumped enough milk for the day," Jennifer explained anxiously, showing the carefully labeled bottles in the refrigerator. "And here's my number. Call me if anything." "Go," Senora Rodriguez interrupted kindly but firmly. "Before you make yourself late. We will be fine." The school day passed in a haze. Jennifer taught on autopilot, her mind constantly wandering to Olivia. Had she taken her bottle? Was she crying for her mother? During her lunch break, she called Senora Rodriguez 3 times before forcing herself to stop. That evening established the pattern for the weeks to come. Jennifer would rush home from school, spend precious hours with Olivia, then put her to bed before grading papers and preparing lessons late into the night. Weekends were devoted to catching up on laundry, shopping for necessities, and completing the mountains of paperwork required to secure what meager assistance was available to single mothers. Her restaurant job remained on hold. The thought of leaving Olivia with a sitter during evenings as well as days was too painful to contemplate. But without that second income, Jennifer's finances grew increasingly precarious. One night, when Olivia was nearly 2 months old, Jennifer sat at her small desk after finally getting the baby to sleep. She opened her laptop to check her bank balance and felt her stomach drop at the number: $117. Rent was due in a week. Instead of succumbing to panic, Jennifer opened a new browser tab and navigated to the university website. Her MBA application had been submitted just before Olivia's birth. The response had arrived while she was in the hospital. Acceptance with a partial scholarship that would cover half the tuition. Not enough, but a start. Classes would begin in January. Jennifer stared at the course schedule, calculating childcare costs, textbook expenses, transportation. The numbers refused to add up. "I need that restaurant job back," she whispered to herself. The next day, Jennifer called her manager at the restaurant, who was surprisingly delighted to hear from her. "We're short-staffed on weekends," he told her. "Could you work Saturday dinner shifts? Maybe Sunday brunches?" Jennifer agreed immediately. Weekend shifts meant she could ask Clara to babysit occasionally, saving on childcare costs while still bringing in crucial tips. The following Saturday marked Jennifer's return to waitressing. As she donned the black pants and white shirt uniform, looser now but still a reminder of her changed body, she leaned over Olivia's crib. "Mommy has to go to work now," she whispered to her sleeping daughter, "but I'll be back before you know it. Be good for Aunt Clara." The restaurant was busier than she remembered, the pace frenetic. Jennifer's body, still recovering from childbirth and weakened by sleep deprivation, protested every step. By the end of the 6-hour shift, her back screamed with pain and her feet had swollen inside her shoes. But the wad of cash in her pocket, nearly $100 in tips, made the discomfort worthwhile. This became her new normal: teaching weekdays, waitressing weekends, caring for Olivia in every moment between, and studying late into the night after her daughter fell asleep. Sleep became a luxury Jennifer could rarely afford. In January, Jennifer added MBA classes to her impossible schedule. 4 nights a week, after teaching all day and spending a precious hour with Olivia, she would rush to evening lectures, her breast pump and textbooks stuffed into her bag alongside graded papers and lesson plans. During the 3rd week of classes, Jennifer's business strategy professor assigned a group project due in 2 weeks. The other students, mostly young professionals without children, suggested meeting at a bar on Friday night. "I can't do evenings," Jennifer explained apologetically. "I have a baby at home." One classmate, a junior executive at an advertising firm, rolled his eyes. "This is grad school, not community college. If you can't commit to the work—" "I can meet during lunch hours," Jennifer interrupted firmly, "or early mornings before class. I'm committed to this program, but my daughter comes first." To her surprise, the group adjusted their schedule, meeting instead during lunch breaks at a cafe halfway between Jennifer's school and the business district. It was the first of many small victories, proving that she could succeed on her own terms without sacrificing Olivia's well-being. As winter turned to spring, Jennifer fell into an exhausting but sustainable rhythm. Olivia grew from a helpless newborn into an alert, smiling baby who recognized her mother instantly and reached for her with chubby arms. Those moments of reunion, Olivia's face lighting up when Jennifer returned from work or class, made every sacrifice worthwhile. The MBA courses proved challenging but invigorating. For the first time since Marcus's abandonment, Jennifer found herself intellectually stimulated, her mind working on problems more complex than how to stretch her budget another week. She discovered a particular aptitude for entrepreneurship and marketing strategy classes, often drawing on her teaching experience to identify gaps in educational resources. One night, as Jennifer sat on her bed with Olivia sleeping beside her, she noticed her daughter fussing whenever she tried to turn the pages of her heavy marketing textbook. On impulse, Jennifer recorded herself reading the chapter aloud, then played it back through earbuds while holding Olivia. The baby settled immediately against her mother's chest, allowing Jennifer to read along with her recording without disturbing her daughter. That moment of improvisation sparked an idea. Jennifer opened her laptop and began researching audio learning platforms for students. Most were clunky, expensive, or poorly designed. None offered the personalized approach she envisioned. Olivia stirred in her sleep, and Jennifer gazed down at her daughter's peaceful face. "You just gave Mommy a business idea, sweet girl," she whispered. For her entrepreneurship class's final project, Jennifer developed a rudimentary prototype of an adaptive learning platform, one that would adjust to different learning styles and paces, inspired by her observations both as a teacher and as a student juggling impossible demands. The night before her presentation, Jennifer stayed up until 3 in the morning finalizing her slides. Olivia woke twice for feedings, and Jennifer nursed her while reviewing her talking points, swaying gently to keep her daughter content. Morning came too quickly. Bleary-eyed but determined, Jennifer dressed in her most professional outfit, a navy skirt suit purchased secondhand but carefully tailored to fit her post-pregnancy body. She applied concealer to the dark circles under her eyes and twisted her hair into a neat bun. "Wish Mommy luck today," she told Olivia as she dropped her off with Senora Rodriguez. In the classroom, Jennifer's presentation was scheduled last. She sat through her classmates' polished pitches, apps for finding parking spots, platforms for connecting freelancers, services for delivering gourmet meals. All were well-conceived, backed by thorough market research, presented by well-rested individuals without spit-up on their shoulders. When Jennifer's turn came, she approached the front of the room with quiet confidence. Her slides were fewer but more focused than her classmates. She spoke not from rehearsed talking points but from lived experience, as a teacher who saw students falling through the cracks of standardized education, as a working mother who needed flexible learning options, as a consumer frustrated by existing platforms' limitations. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment before her professor, Dr. Alan Merritt, leaned forward in his chair. "That's the most practical application I've seen this semester," he said. "Have you considered seeking investment?" Jennifer blinked, caught off guard. "Investment? No, I mean, this is just a class project." "It could be much more," Dr. Merritt said. "I have a friend in educational technology venture capital who might be interested in talking with you." That evening, as Jennifer nursed Olivia in their tiny room, she stared at the business card Dr. Merritt had pressed into her hand. Michael Chen, partner, Horizon Ventures. A door potentially opening to a world she'd never imagined entering. She looked down at Olivia, whose eyes, so like Marcus's, gazed up at her with complete trust and dependence. "What do you think, sweet girl? Should Mommy try to be an entrepreneur?" As if in answer, Olivia reached up and patted Jennifer's cheek with a tiny hand. The simple prototype that Jennifer created between bottle feedings and diaper changes would be the seed of Collins Educational Technology, a company that 15 years later would revolutionize access to education in 43 countries. The simple prototype Jennifer had created between bottle feedings and diaper changes began to take shape in her mind as something more than just a class project. 3 years later, on a bright May morning, Jennifer stood in the auditorium of Columbia University, clutching Olivia's hand as they waited for her name to be called. "Collins, Jennifer," the dean announced, "Master of Business Administration with honors." The audience applauded as Jennifer crossed the stage, her academic regalia flowing behind her. From the front row, 3-year-old Olivia clapped enthusiastically, her dark curls bouncing with each movement. Clara, who sat beside her, had to hold the excited toddler back from running onto the stage. "That's my mommy!" Olivia's voice rang out clearly in the momentary silence, causing ripples of laughter and warm smiles throughout the auditorium. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears as she accepted her diploma. The document represented countless sleepless nights, thousands of pages read while nursing or rocking Olivia, and an unwavering determination that had surprised even herself. The words Marcus had spoken that night in her Brooklyn apartment echoed in her mind. "You're condemning both of you to mediocrity." She clutched the diploma tighter, a tangible refutation of his cruel prediction. Later that evening, after a small celebration with Clara and a few classmates, Jennifer tucked an exhausted Olivia into bed in their apartment, a modest one-bedroom in Queens that had replaced their tiny room 6 months earlier. It wasn't luxurious, but it was clean, safe, and theirs. "I'm so proud of you, Mommy," Olivia murmured sleepily, her eyes, so disconcertingly like Marcus's, already closing. "Thank you, sweet girl," Jennifer whispered, stroking her daughter's hair. "Everything I do is for you." After Olivia fell asleep, Jennifer opened her laptop and pulled up the business plan she'd been refining over the past year. The adaptive learning platform she'd initially conceived as a class project had evolved into a comprehensive vision for personalized education technology. Dr. Merritt's introduction to Michael Chen at Horizon Ventures had resulted in a small seed investment, enough to develop a proper prototype and file preliminary patents, but not enough to quit teaching or build a team. Jennifer sipped her lukewarm coffee, reviewing the next steps. With her MBA now complete, it was time to commit fully to her startup dream. The thought terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. 2 weeks later, Jennifer stood in a small, dusty office space in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn. Exposed brick walls, scuffed hardwood floors, and large windows with a view of industrial rooftops comprised the entirety of her new business headquarters. "It's not much to look at," said the leasing agent apologetically, "but it's a shared space, 4 startups splitting the rent. Your portion would be the back corner." Jennifer walked to the designated area, a space barely large enough for 2 desks, separated from the rest of the room by low partitions. The other 3 sections were already occupied, each with small teams huddled around computers or whiteboards. "It's perfect," she said decisively, signing the rental agreement on the spot. That weekend, Jennifer and Olivia visited a discount furniture store, selecting a sturdy desk and a comfortable chair for the new office. In the children's section, Jennifer found a small table and chair set on clearance. "Is this for me?" Olivia asked, bouncing on her toes. "Yes, sweetie. It's for your special corner in Mommy's new office." On Monday morning, Jennifer officially launched Collins Educational Technology. The company consisted of herself, a laptop purchased with part of her investment money, and a 3-year-old assistant who spent her first day coloring pictures of what she called learning robots for her mother's bulletin board. Jennifer created a dedicated space for Olivia in her corner of the shared office, a colorful rug, the small table and chairs, and shelves stocked with books, educational toys, and art supplies. Most were handmade or purchased secondhand, but Jennifer arranged them with such care that the corner became a magical oasis for her daughter. The other startups in the space, a graphic design firm, a sustainable clothing brand, and a food delivery app, initially viewed the presence of a child with skepticism. But Olivia's quiet demeanor and Jennifer's professionalism quickly won them over. Before long, the graphic designers were showing Olivia how to use simple design software, and the clothing entrepreneurs were letting her arrange fabric swatches by color. While Olivia colored or played, Jennifer worked tirelessly on developing her learning platform. She had resigned from her teaching position, using her savings and investment money to support them while she built the business. She kept her weekend waitressing job, unable to completely let go of that safety net. "Mommy, look!" Olivia called one afternoon, holding up a drawing of stick figures labeled "Me" and "Mommy," standing next to what appeared to be a computer with a smiley face. Jennifer crossed the room and knelt beside her daughter. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. Is that our learning program?" Olivia nodded solemnly. "It helps kids like me learn better." Jennifer hugged her daughter tightly, suddenly overwhelmed by the realization that Olivia truly understood what she was trying to build. Not just a business, but a legacy. something that would make the world better for children like her. As summer turned to fall, Jennifer's prototype evolved from concept to reality. She hired a freelance programmer to help with the technical aspects she couldn't manage alone, and together they created a functioning demo version of the adaptive learning platform. The program used artificial intelligence to adjust to a student's learning pace and style, providing personalized exercises and feedback. By December, Jennifer felt ready to approach schools about piloting her program. She created professional-looking brochures on her laptop, rehearsed her pitch until she could deliver it in her sleep, and made appointments with a dozen principals and educational directors across New York City. The first 11 meetings ended with polite rejections or non-committal promises to consider it for next year's budget. Discouraged but undeterred, Jennifer prepared for her final appointment with Dr. William Barrett, principal of an innovative charter school in the Bronx. "Why should we choose your solution instead of those from established educational technology companies?" Dr. Barrett asked after her presentation, leaning back in his chair with a skeptical expression. Jennifer took a deep breath. This was the moment that would either launch her company or send her back to the drawing board. "Because I understand the real needs of students," she replied with quiet passion. "I'm a teacher and a mother, not just a programmer. I've seen firsthand how one-size-fits-all approaches fail certain children. My platform adapts not just to academic levels, but to learning styles, attention spans, and individual interests." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "The big companies see students as data points. I see them as children, each with unique potential waiting to be unlocked." Dr. Barrett studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "We'll try it with 2 classrooms starting in January. If it works, we'll discuss expanding." Jennifer managed to maintain her professional composure until she left the building. Once outside, she spun in a circle of joy on the sidewalk, earning strange looks from passers-by. She couldn't wait to tell Olivia. That evening, as they celebrated with ice cream in their apartment, Jennifer swung her daughter into the air. "We did it, Olivia! The school is going to try our program!" Olivia giggled, chocolate ice cream smeared around her mouth. "Can I help make it work, Mommy?" "You already have, sweetheart. Your ideas about the colors and the little reward animations, they're all going to be part of it." The weeks leading up to the pilot launch were a frenzy of activity. Jennifer worked 18-hour days, refining the program, creating user manuals, and training the teachers who would implement it. Olivia often fell asleep on the small couch Jennifer had added to their office corner, wrapped in a blanket while her mother worked late into the night. Finally, launch day arrived. Jennifer wore her most professional outfit, a navy pantsuit she'd splurged on after signing the contract with Dr. Barrett. Olivia had helped pick out her mother's earrings, insisting on the sparkly ones for good luck. Everything seemed perfect as Jennifer set up the program in the first classroom. The students watched with excitement as she explained how the platform would work. But when 30 children simultaneously logged in for the first time, the system crashed completely. Error messages filled the screens, and Jennifer's heart sank as she saw Dr. Barrett's expression darken. "This is unacceptable, Ms. Collins," he said quietly, pulling her aside while the teacher attempted to redirect the disappointed students. "We've rearranged our curriculum for this." "I can fix it," Jennifer promised, her mind already racing through possible solutions. "It's just a scaling issue. I didn't anticipate the simultaneous load." Dr. Barrett's expression remained stern. "You have until Monday to fix it, or we'll have to terminate the contract." That weekend became a marathon of coding, testing, and desperate problem-solving. Jennifer barely slept, working from the moment she dropped Olivia at Clara's apartment on Friday evening until late Sunday night. She had to cancel her waitressing shift, losing crucial income but gaining precious hours to save her company. By Sunday afternoon, Jennifer's eyes burned from staring at her computer screen. She'd identified the issue, a database configuration problem that couldn't handle multiple concurrent users, but the solution was proving elusive. Her freelance programmer had tried to help remotely, but eventually admitted it was beyond his expertise. Exhaustion and despair washed over her. Jennifer put her head down on her desk and, for the first time in months, allowed herself to cry. Maybe Marcus had been right. Maybe she was reaching beyond her capabilities, destined to fail. The office door opened, and Jennifer quickly wiped her eyes. Clara entered with Olivia, who immediately ran to her mother. "Mommy, why are you sad?" Olivia asked, her small face concerned as she noticed Jennifer's reddened eyes. "Mommy's computer program isn't working right," Jennifer explained, trying to sound stronger than she felt. Olivia solemnly offered her worn teddy bear. "Don't cry, Mommy. Bear helps when I'm sad." Jennifer hugged her daughter, suddenly struck by the pure, unconditional love in that simple gesture. If a 3-year-old could face the world with such optimism and resilience, how could she do any less? With renewed determination, Jennifer returned to the problem. At 4 a.m, after sending Clara and Olivia home in a taxi and consuming her 6th cup of coffee, she finally discovered the solution: a different database architecture that could handle the traffic spikes created by classroom use. By 9 o'clock Monday morning, the system was running flawlessly. Dr. Barrett watched with growing approval as 30 students logged in simultaneously without a single error. "You fixed it," he said, genuine admiration in his voice. "Yes," Jennifer replied simply, hiding the fact that she'd been awake for nearly 48 hours straight. "This matters to me. These students matter." By the end of the day, the feedback from teachers and students was overwhelmingly positive. Children who typically struggled with traditional instruction were engaged and making progress. Those who usually finished early were challenged by advanced content that the system automatically provided. Dr. Barrett called Jennifer into his office as she was packing up. "I'm impressed, Ms. Collins. Not just with the technology, but with your commitment. Most vendors would have made excuses. You made solutions." He slid a contract across his desk. "We'd like to implement your platform across all grade levels starting next month, and I've spoken with colleagues at 2 other schools who are interested as well." That evening, Jennifer signed her first official contract as CEO of Collins Educational Technology. Sitting at her kitchen table, she celebrated with a package of instant ramen and a can of soda, all she could afford after the lost weekend income. "This is just the beginning," she whispered to herself, already planning how to scale her operation to meet the new demand. While Jennifer celebrated her first contract with instant noodles and cheap soda, Marcus Blackwood was receiving his first Businessman of the Year award, with no idea that the woman he had abandoned was beginning to build something that would one day overshadow all his achievements. Jennifer placed the last of the financial spreadsheets into a neat folder and glanced at the digital clock on her nightstand. 11:43 p.m. Olivia had been asleep for hours, her tiny form curled under the covers in their shared bedroom. In the 5 years since her birth, Jennifer's daughter had become not just the center of her world, but the driving force behind every decision, every sacrifice, every achievement. The Collins Educational Technology had gone from a concept in a classroom to a reality operating in 12 New York schools. The adaptive learning software that Jennifer had envisioned while juggling motherhood and studies was helping hundreds of students who struggled with traditional education methods. Yet despite this success, Jennifer faced a critical obstacle. Growth required capital, and the small investment from Michael Chen had long since been depleted. Jennifer rubbed her eyes and opened her laptop one last time. The email announcing the Breakthrough Innovation Competition stared back at her, a prestigious startup contest with a grand prize of $100,000 and, perhaps more importantly, exposure to serious investors. The application deadline was tomorrow. This could change everything, she whispered to herself, glancing again at Olivia's sleeping form. Morning came too quickly. Jennifer woke to Olivia bouncing on the foot of their bed, already dressed in the outfit they'd laid out the night before. "First day of kindergarten," Olivia announced, her dark eyes sparkling with excitement. "I'm ready, Mommy." Jennifer smiled through her exhaustion. "Yes, you are, sweet girl. And you look beautiful." As she helped Olivia with her backpack, a purple affair with dinosaurs that her daughter had insisted on, Jennifer felt a pang of anxiety. Today was monumental for both of them. Olivia's first day of formal school, and the day Jennifer would submit her application for the competition that might determine her company's future. At the elementary school entrance, Olivia suddenly clutched Jennifer's hand tighter. "What if the other kids don't like me?" she whispered, her earlier confidence wavering. Jennifer knelt down, straightening Olivia's collar. "They'll love you, because you're kind and smart and funny. And remember, you already know more about computers than most fifth graders." Olivia giggled, but then her expression grew serious. "Mommy, why don't I have a daddy like the other kids?" The question caught Jennifer off guard. Olivia had asked variations of this before, but never on such an important day, never with such directness. Jennifer swallowed hard, carefully choosing her words. Some families have a mommy and daddy, others just have a mommy. Some have two mommies or two daddies, and some have grandparents who take care of them. The important thing is that our family has lots of love, even if it's just the two of us. Olivia seemed to consider this, then nodded. "Plus, we have Aunt Clara and Mrs. Rodriguez." "Exactly," Jennifer smiled, relieved. "Our family is perfect just the way it is." As Olivia's teacher led the kindergartners into the building, Jennifer watched her daughter go, shoulders squared, purple backpack bouncing slightly with each step. The separation, though temporary, felt momentarily heartbreaking. "They grow up so fast," said a voice beside her. Another mother stood watching her own child disappear into the school. "Too fast," Jennifer agreed, wiping away an unexpected tear. In the taxi heading to her office, Jennifer finalized her competition application on her tablet. The submission deadline was at noon, and every word needed to be perfect. This wasn't just about money, it was about legitimacy, about proving that Collins Educational Technology deserved a place among serious contenders in the educational space. At her desk, Jennifer made the final edits, double-checked all attachments, and with a deep breath, clicked Submit. The confirmation screen appeared just as her office phone rang. "Ms. Collins, this is Elaine from Dr. Barrett's office. He wanted me to inform you that Jefferson Elementary has decided to implement your program for their 3rd and 4th grades. The contract should be on your desk by tomorrow." Jennifer pumped her fist silently in celebration. Jefferson Elementary would be her 13th school, a significant expansion that made her competition entry even more compelling. 2 weeks later, Jennifer received the email she'd been hoping for. Collins Educational Technology had been selected as a finalist in the Breakthrough Innovation Competition. The final round would require an in-person presentation before a panel of judges, tech industry leaders and venture capitalists looking for the next big investment opportunity. "We did it, Olivia," Jennifer announced that evening, spinning her daughter around their small living room. "Mommy's company is a finalist." "Does that mean we won the money?" Olivia asked, her eyes wide. "Not yet, sweetie. I still have to give a big presentation, but being a finalist is a huge honor." In the weeks leading up to the competition, Jennifer rehearsed her presentation obsessively. She practiced in front of Olivia, Clara, and even her small team of part-time freelancers. She refined her slides, memorized key statistics, and prepared answers for every possible question. The night before the competition, Jennifer laid out her outfit, a charcoal gray suit purchased on sale but carefully tailored to fit her slender frame. It wasn't designer, but it was the most professional thing she owned. Olivia insisted on helping, selecting a pair of simple pearl earrings Jennifer had inherited from her grandmother. "These will bring you luck, Mommy," Olivia declared solemnly. Morning came, and after dropping Olivia at school with extra hugs and promises to tell her everything later, Jennifer made her way to the gleaming downtown skyscraper where the competition would be held. In the green room backstage, Jennifer adjusted her jacket for the 10th time, watching the other finalists prepare. Most were men in expensive suits, a few women in designer dresses, all projecting confidence Jennifer wasn't sure she felt. As she reviewed her notes one last time, a competition coordinator approached. "Ms. Collins, here's the final judges list for your reference." Jennifer scanned the names, mostly unfamiliar until she reached the fifth entry. Douglas Preston, Managing Partner, Elevation Capital. Her blood ran cold. Douglas Preston, Marcus's former colleague who had attended several social events where Jennifer had accompanied Marcus. He would recognize her. He would know her history. "Are you all right, Ms. Collins? You've gone pale," the coordinator asked. "I'm fine," Jennifer managed. "Just pre-presentation nerves." When her turn came, Jennifer walked onto the stage with measured steps, her heart pounding. Under the bright lights, she could make out the judges' panel. And there he was, Douglas Preston, older but unmistakable, his expression registering surprise as he recognized her. "Good afternoon," Jennifer began, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. "I'm Jennifer Collins, founder and CEO of Collins Educational Technology." As she moved through her presentation, explaining the adaptive learning platform and its proven results in New York schools, Jennifer felt Douglas's eyes fixed on her. Not hostile, but intensely curious. The other judges leaned forward with interest as she described how her system had improved test scores by 27% among struggling students. "Education technology isn't just about digitizing textbooks," she concluded. "It's about recognizing that every child learns differently and creating systems flexible enough to meet each student where they are. That's the vision driving Collins Educational Technology, and with your support, we can expand that vision to reach thousands more students who are currently falling through the cracks." The applause was enthusiastic. During the Q&A session, Douglas asked pointed but fair questions about scalability and intellectual property protection. Jennifer answered confidently, never acknowledging their past connection. Hours later, the finalists gathered on stage for the announcement. Jennifer stood with her hands clasped tightly, breathing slowly to calm her nerves. The winner of this year's Breakthrough Innovation Competition, with a prize of $100,000 and mentorship opportunities with our sponsoring firms, is Collins Educational Technology. The room erupted in applause. Jennifer stepped forward in shock, accepting the oversized check with trembling hands. Cameras flashed as she thanked the judges and explained briefly how the prize would help expand her platform to underserved communities. At the reception afterward, Jennifer was surrounded by well-wishers and potential investors exchanging business cards. She was navigating through the crowd toward the exit when a voice stopped her. "Jennifer Collins, quite an impressive presentation." She turned to find Douglas Preston holding 2 glasses of champagne, offering one to her. "Thank you, Mr. Preston," she replied formally, accepting the glass but not drinking. "Let's drop the pretense," he said quietly. "I know who you are. I remember you from events with Marcus years ago." Jennifer stiffened. "That was a lifetime ago, Mr. Preston." "Indeed, and what you've built since then is remarkable." His eyes held genuine admiration. "You've impressed me, Jennifer. Your resilience is nothing short of extraordinary." Jennifer studied him warily. "I appreciate the compliment." "It's not just a compliment." Douglas moved closer, lowering his voice. "I know about you and Marcus. Always thought he made the biggest mistake of his life, but I never imagined you'd rise from it like this." "I didn't build my company to prove anything to Marcus," Jennifer said sharply. "Of course not. You built it because you're brilliant." Douglas handed her his card. "I'd like to discuss a potential investment from Elevation Capital, and perhaps offer some mentorship if you're open to it." Jennifer hesitated, turning the card over in her fingers. "Why would you want to help me?" "Because good ideas deserve support, regardless of personal history, and because I've watched too many talented women get pushed aside in this industry." He smiled slightly. "Call it atonement for the sins of my gender, if you like." That evening, Jennifer returned home to find Clara and Olivia waiting with a homemade congratulations banner strung across the living room and a small chocolate cake on the table. "You won, Mommy!" Olivia rushed into her arms. "Clara saw it on Twitter. "I did, sweet girl," Jennifer laughed, holding her daughter close. "We won." Later, after Olivia had fallen asleep, Jennifer sat on the edge of her bed, Douglas's business card in her hand. The prize money would help, but Douglas's offer of investment and mentorship could transform her company's trajectory. Yet accepting help from someone connected to Marcus, even tangentially, felt complicated. Jennifer glanced at Olivia's peaceful, sleeping face, then back at the card. For 5 years, she'd carried the weight of Marcus's rejection, using it as fuel, but never truly setting it down. Perhaps it was time to allow herself not just determination, but pride in what she'd accomplished on her terms. She reached for her phone and typed a message to Douglas Preston. "I'm interested in discussing your investment offer. Available to meet next week." After sending the text, Jennifer finally allowed herself to cry. Not from sadness or exhaustion, but from relief and a sense of vindication so profound it overwhelmed her. The investment from Douglas would be the catalyst that transformed her small startup into a force disruptive in the educational market. But neither of them could predict that in just 7 years, she would refuse an acquisition offer of $500 million, including a proposal from Marcus Blackwood himself. The investment from Douglas proved transformative. 3 years after their initial meeting, Jennifer stood at the window of the Collins Educational Technology headquarters, surveying the bustling office floor below. 65 employees now worked across an entire floor of a sleek Midtown Manhattan building. Developers, curriculum specialists, sales representatives, and support staff all dedicated to the vision she had birthed during those desperate nights as a new mother. "The Singapore expansion contracts need your signature," said Andrea, her executive assistant, placing a folder on Jennifer's desk. "And the board wants final approval on the new middle school mathematics module before the developers begin coding." Jennifer nodded, returning to her desk. "Tell them I'll review it by end of day. Any word from the Chicago School District?" "They've agreed to pilot in 20 schools this fall," Andrea replied with a smile. "That's the largest single deployment we've ever secured." "Excellent." Jennifer glanced at the clock. Almost 3. "Is Olivia here yet?" "In her usual spot," Andrea confirmed. "Working on something that looks far too complex for an 8-year-old, if you ask me." Jennifer smiled. "That's my girl." In the corner of her spacious office, Jennifer had created a special area for Olivia, a desk equipped with a high-end laptop, comfortable seating, and shelves of books and educational materials. Unlike the makeshift space in their first shared office, this one featured custom furniture and state-of-the-art technology. After school each day, Olivia would come to the office, completing homework before diving into her own projects, often related to her mother's work. Jennifer crossed to where her daughter sat, completely absorbed in lines of code on her screen. At 8 years old, Olivia Collins was already showing extraordinary aptitude for mathematics and computer science. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, her brow furrowed in concentration, an expression so reminiscent of Marcus that it sometimes caught Jennifer off guard. "What are you working on, sweetheart?" Jennifer asked, placing a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. Olivia looked up, her eyes bright with excitement. "I'm trying to improve the algorithm for the spelling module. See, if we adjust how it predicts common mistakes based on phonetic patterns, it could adapt faster for dyslexic students." Jennifer leaned closer, examining the code. Despite her own growing technical expertise, Olivia's intuitive understanding of programming sometimes surpassed her own. "That's brilliant, Liv. Want to explain this section here?" Jennifer pointed to a particularly complex function. For the next 15 minutes, mother and daughter worked side by side, Jennifer occasionally suggesting refinements while Olivia explained her reasoning with the precision of someone 3 times her age. These moments were precious to Jennifer, collaborative, joyful times when their shared intellect created something greater than either could produce alone. Their work was interrupted by Andrea. "Sorry to disturb you, but Douglas Preston is calling. He says it's important." Jennifer returned to her desk and picked up the phone. "Douglas, what can I do for you?" "Jennifer, I've just been approached by the organizers of the National Educational Technology Conference in San Francisco. Their keynote speaker had to cancel, and they're hoping you can step in. It's next month. All expenses paid, of course, and major visibility for Collins. Jennifer hesitated. Since founding the company, she had deliberately maintained a low profile, focusing on product development rather than personal recognition. I'm not sure, Douglas. You know I prefer to let the technology speak for itself. Jennifer, Douglas's voice took on the mentoring tone he'd adopted over the years. You've built something remarkable, but it's time the world knew the mind behind it. Your story is part of what makes Collins different. After ending the call, Jennifer stared thoughtfully out her window. Douglas was right. As the company grew, her reluctance to step into the spotlight was becoming a limitation. The conference would bring valuable exposure, and perhaps it was time to overcome her aversion to public attention. Olivia, she called, how would you like to go to San Francisco next month? Olivia's eyes widened. Really? Can we visit the Science Museum there? And the Golden Gate Bridge? Absolutely, Jennifer laughed. It will be your first plane trip too. The month passed quickly in a flurry of preparation. Jennifer worked with her marketing team to craft a presentation that would showcase the company's mission while highlighting their technological innovations. Olivia, meanwhile, created a detailed itinerary of San Francisco attractions she wanted to visit during their free time. The morning of their departure, Jennifer felt an unexpected flutter of nerves as they boarded the plane. Olivia claimed the window seat, pressing her face against the glass as they taxied down the runway. "We're really flying, Mommy!" she exclaimed as the plane lifted off, her excitement momentarily displacing Jennifer's anxiety. In their hotel suite that evening, Jennifer rehearsed her presentation one final time while Olivia arranged her mother's outfit for the following day. "You should wear the blue blazer," Olivia decided. "It matches your eyes and makes you look like a boss." Jennifer smiled. "Do I not look like a boss in other colors?" "You always look like a boss," Olivia said seriously. "But in blue, you look like a super boss." The next morning, Jennifer stood backstage at the convention center, adjusting her blue blazer as Olivia had suggested. The butterflies in her stomach had intensified. 3,000 education and technology professionals waited in the auditorium. "You're going to be amazing," Olivia assured her, straightening her mother's collar with a maternal gesture that belied her 8 years. "Just pretend you're explaining it to me." "What would I do without you?" Jennifer asked, kneeling to hug her daughter. "You'd probably forget to eat lunch and wear mismatched socks," Olivia replied matter-of-factly, making Jennifer laugh despite her nerves. As the conference organizer introduced her, Jennifer took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The spotlight momentarily blinded her, but as her eyes adjusted, she found her confidence. This was her domain, her vision. She knew it better than anyone. "Thank you for that kind introduction," she began. "I'm Jennifer Collins, founder and CEO of Collins Educational Technology. Our mission is simple but profound: to ensure that every child, regardless of learning style, background, or circumstance, has access to personalized education that helps them realize their full potential." As she continued explaining how her platform adapted to individual learning needs, Jennifer hit her stride. She shared anonymized case studies: the dyslexic 5th grader whose reading improved 3 grade levels in 6 months, the autistic teenager who thrived with the platform's customizable interface, the rural school district where limited resources had previously meant limited opportunities. "We're not just digitizing textbooks," she explained passionately. "We're transforming how education responds to human diversity. Every mind learns differently. Our technology embraces that fundamental truth." Halfway through her presentation, as Jennifer turned to address the other side of the auditorium, her gaze caught on a familiar face in the 3rd row. Her heart seemed to stop momentarily before resuming at double speed. Marcus Blackwood sat watching her, older but instantly recognizable. He wore an expensive suit, his posture as commanding as ever, but his presence here was utterly unexpected. What was he doing at an educational technology conference? Jennifer faltered for only a microsecond before continuing, her voice growing stronger, more confident. "We're building a future where obstacles become opportunities," she declared, unable to prevent a hint of personal meaning from infusing her words. Throughout the rest of her presentation, Jennifer maintained her composure, never again looking directly at Marcus's Rao. When she concluded to enthusiastic applause, the audience rose in a standing ovation. From backstage, Olivia beamed with pride. The post-presentation reception was a whirlwind of handshakes, business cards, and earnest conversations with potential partners and clients. Jennifer moved through the crowd efficiently, always keeping one eye on Olivia, who sat at a nearby table drawing on her tablet. "Ms. Collins, your presentation was revolutionary," gushed a school superintendent from Texas. "We'd love to discuss implementing your platform district-wide." Jennifer was exchanging contact information when she sensed a presence approaching from her peripheral vision. Without turning, she knew it was Marcus. Years might have passed, but some awareness of him remained encoded in her body, a vestige of their history she'd never fully erased. "Jennifer." His voice hadn't changed, the same rich timbre that had once made her heart race, now sending ice through her veins. Jennifer finished her conversation with the superintendent before turning slowly to face the father of her child. "Marcus," she acknowledged coolly. "This is unexpected." He looked both the same and different, silver threading his temples now, fine lines around his eyes, but the same aristocratic features, the same penetrating gaze that Olivia had inherited. "I'm here representing the Blackwood Foundation," he explained, gesturing to his name badge. "We've been exploring educational initiatives." The Blackwood Foundation, the philanthropic arm of his family's company. Jennifer had heard of it but paid little attention to Marcus's activities over the years. "Your presentation was impressive," he continued. "I had no idea you'd built all this." The understated amazement in his voice gave Jennifer a flash of bitter satisfaction. He had dismissed her as mediocre, incapable, yet here she stood, a recognized innovator in a field he was only now exploring. "There's a lot you don't know about me, Marcus," she replied evenly. His eyes moved past her shoulder, and something in his expression changed, softened, then intensified. Jennifer turned to follow his gaze and saw Olivia looking their way, clearly wondering who this man was speaking to her mother. Recognition dawned in Marcus's eyes, the unmistakable resemblance between himself and the dark-haired girl across the room. Jennifer felt a cold dread seep into her chest. "Is that—" he began. "Mommy, can we go now?" Olivia called, approaching them. "We have that flight to catch, remember?" Jennifer silently blessed her daughter's perfect timing. "Yes, sweetheart, we should head out." She turned back to Marcus, whose eyes were fixed on Olivia with undisguised fascination. "If you'll excuse us." "Of course," Marcus managed, clearly struggling to maintain his composure. "Perhaps we could continue this conversation another time." "I don't think that's necessary," Jennifer replied. Taking Olivia's hand, she guided her quickly toward the exit. "Mommy, who was that man trying to talk to you?" Olivia asked as they climbed into a taxi outside the convention center. Jennifer kept her expression neutral. "No one important? Just someone I knew a long time ago." That night, on their flight back to New York, Olivia slept peacefully while Jennifer stared out the window at the darkness below, her mind turbulent. The encounter with Marcus had been brief but unsettling. He had recognized Olivia. She was certain of it. The question was, what would he do with that knowledge? Upon returning to New York, Jennifer threw herself into work, expanding the company's reach and refining their technology. Olivia continued to flourish, her contributions to the platform's programming becoming increasingly significant despite her young age. Life continued its forward momentum, and weeks passed without any contact from Marcus. Jennifer began to hope that perhaps he had decided not to pursue the matter further. Then, on a crisp autumn morning, Andrea appeared in her office doorway with an unusual expression. "There's a call for you on line 2, she said. "Marcus Blackwood. He says it's important." Jennifer's hand hovered over the phone for a long moment before she finally picked up the receiver. "This is Jennifer Collins." "Jennifer," Marcus's voice was careful, measured. "I've been thinking about our encounter in San Francisco. There are things we should discuss." "I can't imagine what we have to discuss after all this time," she replied coolly. "I think you know exactly what, or rather, who we need to discuss," he said quietly. "She has my eyes, Jennifer, and my mother's profile. How old is she? 8? 9? That's none of your concern. If she's my daughter, it absolutely is my concern." Jennifer gripped the phone tighter. "You lost any right to concern 8 years ago when you called our child a problem to be solved with a check." The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds. "I was wrong," Marcus finally said. "I made a terrible mistake, but I'd like a chance to make amends." "It's too late for that," Jennifer replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Please, Jennifer, just one meeting, that's all I'm asking." Jennifer glanced at Olivia, contentedly working at her special desk in the corner. "I'll think about it," she said, then hung up without waiting for his response. As she returned to reviewing acquisition documents, Jennifer couldn't shake the unsettling realization that her carefully constructed world now had a crack in its foundation. By refusing to acknowledge Marcus, Jennifer didn't realize she was planting the seed of an obsession that would consume him in the coming years. Discovering how the woman he had discarded had transformed into a business force now moving in the same circles as himself. The seed of obsession that Marcus's encounter with Jennifer had planted continued to grow in the 4 years that followed. Meanwhile, Jennifer Collins, now 37, stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, watching the Manhattan skyline transition from day to night. Lights flickered on across the city, creating a constellation of human ambition and enterprise. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman transformed, poised, elegant, dressed in a tailored Armani suit that she no longer had to save for months to afford. "The final numbers from the Western Regional expansion just came in," said David Chen, her chief financial officer, sliding a tablet across her desk. "We've exceeded projections by 22%. Jennifer turned from the window, a small smile playing at her lips. "That puts us in an excellent position for the Midwest rollout next quarter." "The board will be pleased," David nodded. "Speaking of which, Richardson Media Group has increased their acquisition offer to $500 million. They're eager for an answer." Jennifer returned to her desk, running her fingers along the polished surface. The Collins Educational Technology headquarters now occupied 3 full floors in a prestigious Manhattan building. With over 600 employees and technology implemented in schools across 27 states, her company had become a recognized leader in personalized education platforms. "Tell them I'm not interested," she said firmly. "The technology we've built is just beginning to realize its potential. I won't hand it over to a conglomerate that will prioritize profit over purpose." David wasn't surprised. "I thought you'd say that. Richardson won't be happy, but they'll survive." He gathered his papers and headed for the door, pausing briefly. "By the way, Olivia was looking for you. Something about a new algorithm she's developing." Jennifer checked her watch. Nearly 7. "Is she still here? I thought Clara was taking her home at 5. "You know your daughter?" David chuckled. "She refused to leave until she finished whatever she's working on. She's in the development lab." After David left, Jennifer made her way through the bustling office to the company's development laboratory. Through the glass walls, she could see Olivia, now 12, surrounded by professional programmers twice her age, all listening intently as she explained something on her tablet. Jennifer paused, watching with pride as her daughter gestured animatedly, her dark hair falling over her shoulders in waves reminiscent of her father's. Olivia had grown into a remarkable young person, brilliant, compassionate, and possessed of a quiet confidence that Jennifer had only developed much later in life. "Mom!" Olivia spotted her and waved her over excitedly. "I think I've solved the personalization problem in the math module." Jennifer joined the group, accepting the tablet Olivia thrust into her hands. On the screen was a complex artificial intelligence algorithm that adjusted learning exercises based on subtle patterns in student responses. "See, it doesn't just track right or wrong answers," Olivia explained, her eyes alight with enthusiasm. "It analyzes hesitation patterns, error types, and learning curve trajectories to predict exactly when a student is ready to advance." The senior developers exchanged impressed glances. Jennifer studied the code, recognizing her daughter's elegant programming style that somehow combined mathematical precision with intuitive leaps. "This is extraordinary, Liv," Jennifer said, genuinely amazed. "How long have you been working on this?" "A few weeks," Olivia shrugged, as if developing graduate-level AI algorithms was a typical middle school activity. "I got the idea watching how different kids in my class approach problems." Later that evening, in their spacious apartment overlooking Central Park, Jennifer and Olivia sat at the dining table eating takeout from their favorite Thai restaurant. The apartment, purchased 3 years earlier, represented everything Jennifer had once thought unattainable: high ceilings, museum-quality art, and a view that still took her breath away. "I submitted my science project proposal today," Olivia mentioned between bites of pad Thai. "Mr. Stevens said it might be too advanced for the 8th grade fair, but he's going to let me try anyway." "That's wonderful," Jennifer smiled. "What's the project?" "A neural network that predicts learning disabilities from early writing samples," Olivia said casually. "If it works, it could help identify kids who need intervention before they fall behind." Jennifer set down her fork, studying her daughter. "You really care about this, don't you? About helping other children learn?" Olivia nodded earnestly. "Everyone deserves a chance to succeed, Mom. You taught me that." A wave of emotion washed over Jennifer, pride mingled with a tinge of melancholy. Olivia was growing into the kind of person who thought of others, who wanted to make a difference. Sometimes Jennifer wondered what Marcus would think if he could see the extraordinary person their daughter had become without his input or influence. "Mom?" Olivia's voice broke into her thoughts. "Do you think my dad would be proud of what I'm doing?" The question caught Jennifer off guard. Olivia rarely mentioned her father, and Jennifer had been careful not to speak ill of him, despite everything. "I think," Jennifer said carefully, "that anyone would be proud to know you, Olivia. You're the most incredible person I've ever met." "But you never talk about him," Olivia pressed. "Sometimes I wonder what he was like, if I'm like him at all." Jennifer reached across the table to take her daughter's hand. "You have his intelligence and determination, but your kindness and your desire to help others, that's all you." The conversation shifted to other topics, but Jennifer remained unsettled. As Olivia grew older, her questions about her father would naturally become more specific, more insistent. Jennifer had always known this day would come, but that didn't make it any easier to navigate. The following week, Jennifer sat in a boardroom with her executive team, discussing the possibility of taking Collins Educational Technology public. The company's valuation had soared in recent years, making an IPO an increasingly attractive option. "The market conditions are favorable," explained Sarah Goldstein, their legal counsel. "Early projections suggest we could achieve a valuation of $1.2 billion. "That's conservative," added David. "With our growth trajectory and intellectual property portfolio, we could easily exceed that." Jennifer considered the implications. Going public would provide capital for further expansion, but it would also mean relinquishing some control, dealing with shareholders, quarterly earnings reports, and increased public scrutiny. "I want to maintain majority ownership," she said finally. "Whatever structure we create, I need to ensure our mission isn't compromised by short-term profit demands." As the meeting continued, Jennifer's assistant slipped her a note. Douglas Preston called. Urgent. After the meeting, Jennifer returned to her office and called Douglas, who had remained a valued mentor and board member. "Jennifer," his voice was tense, "I've just received some interesting information. Blackwood Properties is making inquiries about buying a significant stake in Collins during the IPO. Jennifer froze. Marcus? Yes. From what my sources tell me, he's been following your company's progress for some time. The IPO would give him an opportunity to gain a foothold. Her mind raced. Marcus had attempted to contact her several times since their San Francisco encounter 4 years ago, but she had rebuffed every approach. Now he was trying to force his way into her company, into her life, and potentially Olivia's. That cannot happen, Jennifer said firmly, under any circumstances. I agree, Douglas replied. I'm working with our financial team on a structure that would limit any individual investor's ability to acquire more than 5% without board approval. It will make the offering slightly less attractive to some investors, but it will protect your control. After ending the call, Jennifer stared at the framed photo on her desk, Olivia at age 10, accepting a national coding competition award, beaming with pride. The thought of Marcus suddenly appearing in their lives, claiming rights to Olivia, trying to control the company Jennifer had built from nothing, was intolerable. She picked up her phone and called Sarah Goldstein. I need you to structure the IPO with protections against hostile investors. Specifically, I want safeguards against anyone acquiring more than 5% without explicit board approval. That's unusual but doable, Sarah replied. Any particular investor you're concerned about? Just covering all bases, Jennifer said evenly. This company's mission is too important to risk. The day of the IPO arrived 6 months later. Jennifer and Olivia stood in the company's conference room watching a live feed of the New York Stock Exchange. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation as employees gathered around monitors throughout the office. Collins Educational Technology, trading under the symbol CDU, will begin trading momentarily, announced the commentator. Jennifer felt Olivia's hand slip into hers. Nervous, Mom? A little, Jennifer admitted. This is a big step for the company. For us, Olivia corrected, squeezing her hand. We built this together. The first trade appeared on the screen, and a cheer erupted across the office. The opening price was 30% above their offering price, immediately valuing the company at over $1.5 billion. David rushed into the conference room, beaming. Congratulations, Jennifer. The market loves us. Throughout the day, Jennifer fielded calls from reporters, investors, and well-wishers. A journalist from Bloomberg asked the question that would be repeated in various forms throughout the day. How does it feel to be one of the few female CEOs to lead a billion-dollar IPO? Jennifer's response was measured but pointed. I hope to be just the first of many. I built this company by proving that obstacles can become foundations for something greater. As the day drew to a close, Jennifer and Olivia watched from her office as their company logo illuminated a massive digital billboard in Times Square, a surreal moment that crystallized how far they had come. We did it, Mom, Olivia whispered, her arm around Jennifer's waist. Yes, we did, sweet girl, Jennifer replied, kissing the top of her daughter's head. Later that night, after Olivia had gone to bed, Jennifer poured herself a glass of champagne and stepped onto the balcony of their apartment. The city sparkled below, a fitting backdrop to her moment of quiet celebration. Officially becoming a billionaire felt surreal, a validation she had never sought but couldn't help appreciating for its poetic justice. Somewhere in the city, she knew, Marcus Blackwood was likely watching coverage of the IPO in his increasingly less impressive office. The last she had heard, Blackwood Properties had faced significant setbacks after a series of risky investments backfired. His attempt to acquire shares in Collins had been thwarted by the protective structure she had insisted upon. Jennifer raised her glass to the glittering skyline. The frightened, abandoned young woman she had once been could never have imagined this moment. Not the wealth. That was merely a byproduct. But the knowledge that she had created something meaningful, something that improved children's lives, while raising a daughter who embodied the best of humanity. While Jennifer celebrated becoming officially a billionaire, Marcus Blackwood watched the coverage of the IPO in his office. finally recognizing that the woman he had judged to be a burden now commanded an empire that made his own look mediocre by comparison. Marcus Blackwood sat in his increasingly modest office, staring at the financial news channel where Jennifer's IPO success still dominated the headlines 3 years later. The elegant woman on screen bore little resemblance to the young teacher he had dismissed so cruelly. Each time her face appeared, something twisted painfully in his chest, regret, perhaps, or the dawning realization of what he had lost. The chime of his intercom interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. Blackwood, the board is waiting for you in the conference room." "I'll be right there," he replied, straightening his tie. Blackwood Properties had weathered several difficult years. Bad investments, regulatory issues, and increasing competition had eroded the empire his father had built. Marcus now directed the Blackwood Foundation, the philanthropic arm that had survived the financial turbulence relatively unscathed. It was respectable work, but a far cry from the commanding heights he once occupied. Across town, Jennifer Collins's BMW Series 7 glided through Manhattan traffic. In the back seat, she reviewed quarterly reports on her tablet while speaking to her Tokyo team through her earpiece. "Confirm with Tokyo that implementation will be completed by the end of the quarter," she instructed, her voice carrying the easy authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "And tell legal I want the European expansion documentation on my desk by Monday." At 40, Jennifer had fully embodied the transformation from uncertain young teacher to commanding CEO. Her wardrobe of custom suits and designer accessories weren't merely indulgences but armor, visible symbols of the distance she had traveled from the woman who once stretched meager paychecks to cover rent. The Collins educational technology had evolved beyond anyone's expectations. Valued at $2.8 billion, the company had revolutionized access to education for underserved communities across the globe. Jennifer's adaptive learning platform, initially developed to help Olivia, had grown into a system used by millions of students in 43 countries. "We've arrived, Ms. Collins," announced her driver, pulling up to the luxury building where she now lived. "Thank you, James," she replied, gathering her belongings. "Same time tomorrow." In her spacious apartment overlooking Central Park, Jennifer found Olivia at the grand piano, her fingers moving confidently over the keys. At 15, Olivia had blossomed into a remarkable young woman, brilliant, poised, and possessing a quiet confidence that reminded Jennifer of herself, not the uncertain girl she had been, but the woman she had become. "How was your day?" Jennifer asked, kissing her daughter's forehead. "I finished the algorithm for my science fair project," Olivia replied, leading her mother to the laptop open beside the piano. "Professor Dawkins said it's doctoral dissertation-level work." Jennifer examined the complex code on the screen, pride welling within her. Her daughter had recently been awarded a full scholarship to MIT, where she would study quantum physics and computer science, an extraordinary achievement for a 15-year-old. "This is remarkable, Liv," she said, genuinely impressed by the elegant solutions her daughter had coded. "The predictive model is incredibly sophisticated." "It still needs refinement," Olivia shrugged, though her eyes shone with pleasure at her mother's approval. "But the core functionality works." Jennifer had created a remarkable daughter without a penny from Marcus Blackwood. Every milestone in Olivia's life, first day of school, recitals, math competitions, Jennifer had been there, applauding alone but with enough strength for two. "Are you nervous about tonight?" Olivia asked, closing her laptop. Jennifer smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. "Why would I be? It's just the Metropolitan Gala and an Entrepreneur of the Year award." The truth was, Jennifer was nervous, though not about the award itself. The Metropolitan Gala represented her definitive entry into the social circle that had once deemed her unworthy, the circle to which Marcus Blackwood belonged. She had deliberately avoided checking the guest list, focusing instead on her acceptance speech and the substantial donation she planned to announce. "What time should we leave?" Olivia asked, already moving toward her bedroom to prepare. "The car will be here at 7, Jennifer replied. "Wear the midnight blue Valentino we picked up last weekend." In her own dressing room, Jennifer surveyed the options her stylist had selected. She chose a tailored Valentino gown in deep emerald that complemented her eyes and projected exactly the image she wanted: elegant, powerful, untouchable. As her hairstylist and makeup artist worked, Jennifer reviewed her speech one final time. The Metropolitan Gala was the most prestigious social event of the season, bringing together New York's elite from business, arts, and philanthropy. Jennifer had attended twice before, but tonight was different. She was being honored, recognized by the very establishment that Marcus had once implied would never accept her. Across town, Marcus Blackwood adjusted his bow tie in the mirror of his Upper East Side apartment. At 47, he remained handsome, though stress had etched lines around his eyes and silver threaded prominently through his temples. His girlfriend, Elise, a 30-year-old interior designer, emerged from the bedroom in a form-fitting red gown. "Ready?" she asked, checking her reflection beside him. Marcus nodded absently, his mind elsewhere. The Metropolitan Gala was an obligation for someone in his position, though his enthusiasm for such events had waned in recent years. His failed marriages, first to Sophia, the hotel heiress, which had ended after 7 acrimonious years, and then a brief second marriage that had collapsed under the weight of his financial troubles, had left him wary of the society that once embraced him. "You seem distracted tonight," Elise observed as their town car crawled through evening traffic. "Just thinking about foundation business," he replied vaguely, staring out at the city lights. The truth was more complicated. Earlier that day, he had seen the announcement that Jennifer Collins would receive the Entrepreneur of the Year award at tonight's gala. The coincidence seemed almost cruel, another reminder of how dramatically their fortunes had diverged since that night in Brooklyn. The Metropolitan Gala glittered with New York's elite when Jennifer and Olivia arrived. Under crystal chandeliers, the high society that had once seemed so impossibly distant to Jennifer now greeted her as one of their own. Tech moguls, finance titans, and celebrities mingled seamlessly, air-kissing and exchanging rehearsed pleasantries. "Jennifer Collins, the woman of the hour," exclaimed Harriet Winters, a venture capitalist who had recently joined Jennifer's board. "Everyone's talking about your expansion into Southeast Asia." Jennifer smiled graciously, keeping Olivia close beside her. "The potential for educational transformation there is enormous. We're just getting started." As they moved through the crowd, Jennifer felt a strange electricity in the air, a sixth sense that something significant was about to happen. She dismissed it as pre-award nerves and focused on introducing Olivia to influential contacts who might be valuable to her future career. Across the ballroom, Marcus Blackwood stood with a glass of scotch, observing the crowd with the practiced detachment of someone who had seen too many of these events. When Elise wandered off to greet acquaintances, he found himself alone, scanning the room idly. His gaze stopped abruptly on a familiar figure across the crowded space. Jennifer Collins stood in a circle of admirers, radiating confidence and success in an elegant emerald gown. The sight of her after all these years, not in news coverage or magazine profiles but in person, hit him with unexpected force. For a moment, Marcus didn't recognize her. This confident, elegant woman surrounded by admirers couldn't be the same Jennifer he had left crying in Brooklyn. Then his eyes fixed on her face, and comprehension struck him like a physical blow. His glass nearly slipped from his fingers as his attention shifted to the young woman beside Jennifer. The resemblance was undeniable. The same penetrating eyes that he saw in the mirror every morning, the same proud bearing, the same intelligent gaze assessing the room. "Mother, that man won't stop staring at us," Olivia whispered, uncomfortable with Marcus's fixed attention. Jennifer followed her daughter's gaze and froze. 15 years vanished in an instant. There he stood, the man who had said she wasn't worth the risk, watching her with an expression of shock and Was that recognition as he looked at Olivia? "Who is he?" Olivia insisted, sensing her mother's sudden tension. "No one important," Jennifer replied, recovering her composure. "Just someone I knew a long time ago." She guided Olivia toward their table, deliberately turning her back on Marcus. The encounter she had been subconsciously dreading for years had finally occurred, but she refused to allow it to diminish this moment of triumph. During dinner, Jennifer engaged pleasantly with those seated at her table, including the mayor and several prominent philanthropists. Olivia charmed everyone with her intelligent observations and poised manner. If Jennifer occasionally felt Marcus's gaze from across the room, she gave no indication. As coffee was served, the evening's host approached the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the highlight of our evening. To present our Entrepreneur of the Year award to Jennifer Collins, please welcome the president of the Foundation for Business Innovation, Mr. Marcus Blackwood." A stunned silence enveloped Jennifer. The universe, it seemed, had a cruel sense of humor. She maintained her composed expression even as her heart hammered against her ribs. Beside her, Olivia sat up straighter, curious about this man her mother had dismissed as unimportant. Marcus walked to the stage, visibly shaken. His hand trembled slightly as he adjusted the microphone. "It is with great honor that I present a woman whose extraordinary business journey demonstrates the true American spirit of innovation." His eyes continually returned to Jennifer and Olivia as he read from the teleprompter. When he concluded, "A woman who built an educational empire from scratch, Jennifer Collins," his voice had diminished to nearly a whisper. Jennifer rose with measured grace, walking to the stage as the audience applauded enthusiastically. As she accepted the award, her fingers briefly brushed against Marcus's. The momentary contact seemed to burn him, though Jennifer showed no reaction. At the microphone, Jennifer maintained perfect composure. 15 years ago, a man told me I was worth nothing. Today, I run a company worth more than his entire remaining estate, built with the same hands he judged too weak to succeed." The audience applauded, unaware of the personal drama unfolding before them. Only Marcus understood the true message beneath her words. "My daughter, who grew up without a father, has just received a full scholarship to MIT at 15 years old, proving that the only burden in our story was the weight of doubts we left behind." Marcus's eyes widened. MIT at 15? After the ceremony, as guests mingled over champagne, Marcus maneuvered desperately to approach Jennifer. "Jennifer, can we talk? Please," he murmured, intercepting her near the restrooms. "We have nothing to talk about, Marcus," she replied coldly. "That girl, is she my daughter?" "Yes." "Our daughter?" "Biologically, yes." "Your daughter?" "In no way whatsoever." "Why did you never tell me?" he asked, his voice trembling. Jennifer laughed, a sound without humor. "I did tell you. You offered me money to solve the problem. Remember? I was young, stupid, scared, and I was young, abandoned, and pregnant. Which of us had more right to fear, Marcus?" Olivia approached, her expression curious. "Mom, is everything okay?" Marcus stared at his daughter with hungry eyes, seeing in her all the years he had lost. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Mr. Blackwood was just congratulating me," Jennifer replied smoothly. "You're Olivia, aren't you?" Marcus asked, extending a trembling hand. "I heard about your MIT scholarship. Extraordinary." "Thank you," Olivia replied politely, shaking his hand without knowing she was touching her father for the first time. "We need to go," Jennifer interrupted. "We have an early flight to San Francisco tomorrow. Board meeting." "Can I talk to you tomorrow?" "Please," Marcus implored. Jennifer regarded him for a long moment. "I don't need your congratulations now, just as I didn't need your help when it mattered most. The difference is that today all of Wall Street knows which of us truly wasn't enough." While Marcus stood frozen in place, Jennifer guided Olivia toward the exit, her head held high, her emerald gown shimmering under the chandeliers. The encounter had been inevitable, she realized now. Their worlds had grown too close, their circles overlapping despite her best efforts to keep them separate. What Jennifer couldn't know was that their brief exchange had been captured by a paparazzi photographer lurking near the restrooms, and by morning, speculation would be rampant about the tense interaction between the evening's honoree and the man who presented her award. The tension in the air was palpable as Marcus Blackwood stepped onto the stage of the Metropolitan Gala. His usually steady hands trembled slightly, betraying his composed exterior. The spotlight caught the silver at his temples as he adjusted the microphone, facing the sea of New York's elite, who remained blissfully unaware of the personal drama unfolding before them. "It is with great honor," he began, his voice faltering momentarily as his eyes sought Jennifer in the crowd, "that I present a woman whose extraordinary business journey demonstrates the true American spirit of innovation." The words on the teleprompter blurred before him as Marcus's attention continuously drifted to Jennifer and the young woman beside her, Olivia, whose features mirrored his own in ways too striking to ignore. He forced himself to continue, each word becoming more difficult than the last. "A woman who built an educational empire from scratch, Jennifer Collins," he finally concluded, his voice barely above a whisper. Jennifer rose with deliberate grace, her emerald Valentino gown catching the light as she approached the stage. The physical distance between them diminished with each step, yet the emotional chasm seemed to widen. When she reached him, their fingers brushed momentarily as she accepted the award. The brief contact sent an electric shock through Marcus, while Jennifer's expression remained impassive. Standing at the microphone, Jennifer surveyed the room with the confidence of someone who belonged there, a stark contrast to the insecure young woman Marcus had once dismissed so cruelly. 15 years ago, a man told me I was worth nothing," she began, her voice clear and strong. "Today, I run a company worth more than his entire remaining estate, built with the same hands he judged too weak to succeed." The audience applauded appreciatively, interpreting her words as an inspiring story of overcoming generic doubters. Only Marcus understood the arrow had been aimed directly at him. "My daughter, who grew up without a father, has just received a full scholarship to MIT at 15 years old, proving that the only burden in our story was the weight of doubts we left behind." Marcus stood frozen at the edge of the stage, the revelation hitting him with physical force. MIT at 15? His daughter, the child he had refused to acknowledge, was not merely exceptional, but extraordinary. The applause grew louder as Jennifer concluded her speech with gracious acknowledgments to her team and investors. Throughout the remainder of the ceremony, Marcus's eyes rarely left Jennifer and Olivia. He watched their interactions, noting the obvious bond between them, the comfortable way they communicated with subtle glances, the protective manner in which Jennifer kept Olivia within her orbit while introducing her to influential contacts. As the formal portion of the evening concluded and guests began to mingle, Marcus abandoned his date at their table, weaving through the crowd with singular purpose. He spotted Jennifer near the restrooms, momentarily alone. "Jennifer, can we talk? Please," he murmured, stepping into her path. She regarded him with cool detachment. "We have nothing to talk about, Marcus." Up close, the years had been kind to her. The uncertain young teacher had transformed into a commanding presence, her success evident not just in her designer gown but in the confident set of her shoulders, the direct gaze that no longer wavered before his. "That girl, is she—" He couldn't complete the question, though they both knew what he was asking. "My daughter? Yes. Our daughter? Biologically, yes. Your daughter? In no way whatsoever." Jennifer's voice was ice, each word precisely chosen. Marcus swallowed hard. "Why did you never tell me?" Jennifer's laugh held no humor. "I did tell you. You offered me money to solve the problem. Remember?" The memory of that night in Brooklyn crashed over him. The check he'd written, the cruel dismissal of her worth, the way he'd reduced their child to an inconvenience. Shame burned through him. "I was young, stupid, scared. he offered weakly. And I was young, abandoned, and pregnant, she countered. Which of us had more right to fear, Marcus? Before he could respond, Olivia approached, her midnight blue Valentino complementing her mother's emerald gown. The familial resemblance between mother and daughter was evident, but so were the unmistakable features she had inherited from him: his eyes, his mother's profile, the distinctive arch of her eyebrows. "Mom, is everything okay?" Olivia asked, her gaze curious but cautious as she assessed the tension between the adults. Marcus stared at his daughter, taking in every detail of her face, a face he should have watched grow from infancy. 15 years of birthdays, first steps, school achievements, all lost to him through his own callous choice. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Mr. Blackwood was just congratulating me," Jennifer replied smoothly. "You're Olivia, aren't you?" Marcus managed, extending a trembling hand. "I heard about your MIT scholarship. Extraordinary." "Thank you," Olivia replied politely, shaking his hand without any recognition of the significance that she was touching her father for the first time in her life. "We need to go," Jennifer interrupted, placing a protective hand on Olivia's shoulder. "We have an early flight to San Francisco tomorrow. Board meeting." Desperation surged through Marcus. "Can I talk to you tomorrow? Please," he implored, his voice low enough that Olivia couldn't hear. Jennifer studied him for a long moment, her eyes revealing nothing of her thoughts. "I don't need your congratulations now, just as I didn't need your help when it mattered most," she finally said. "The difference is that today all of Wall Street knows which of us truly wasn't enough." The words struck with precision, echoing his own cruel dismissal 15 years earlier. Jennifer guided Olivia away, leaving Marcus rooted in place, watching as they disappeared into the crowd. The champagne in his hand had gone flat, much like the life he had built on the foundation of ambition without compassion. Across the room, Elise was watching him with narrowed eyes, clearly displeased by his extended absence. Marcus couldn't bring himself to care. His mind was consumed by the revelation that his daughter, his brilliant MIT-bound daughter, had been living in the same city all these years, achieving greatness without his knowledge or contribution. Jennifer and Olivia's town car pulled away from the venue, the lights of Manhattan glittering around them. Olivia studied her mother's profile in the darkness. "Who was he really, Mom? You seemed different with him." Jennifer maintained her composure, though her heart raced. "Just someone from my past. Nothing to worry about." "He kept staring at me," Olivia persisted, "and he knew about MIT. Everyone in the business world knows about your scholarship, sweetheart. It was in the press release about the award." Olivia fell silent, but Jennifer recognized the thoughtful expression that meant her daughter was processing information, making connections. Olivia had inherited her analytical mind, her ability to solve complex puzzles. Soon she would begin to piece together the truth Jennifer had protected her from for 15 years. The following morning dawned with unexpected complications. Jennifer's phone chimed with a text from her publicist before 6. "Check your email immediately. Page 6 has photos." Slipping out of bed to avoid waking Olivia, Jennifer opened her laptop in the living room of their penthouse. Her stomach dropped as she saw the email with the subject line, "Urgent. Page 6, questioning if there's history between you and Blackwood. How to proceed." The attached photos showed her tense exchange with Marcus, his desperate expression, Olivia's arrival, and the unmistakable shock on Marcus's face as he looked at the girl. The gossip column was speculating about a mysterious past between the entrepreneur of the year and the once powerful real estate mogul. Jennifer closed her eyes, taking a steadying breath. She had always known this day might come, but had hoped to control the timing, to prepare Olivia properly. Now, circumstances were forcing her hand. When Olivia emerged from her bedroom an hour later, Jennifer had already made coffee and was sitting on the sofa, her expression serious. "We need to talk about last night," Jennifer said, patting the space beside her. "About Mr. Blackwood?" Olivia asked, surprisingly direct as she settled next to her mother. Jennifer nodded. "There's something I've never told you about your father." As the private jet carried them toward San Francisco later that morning, Jennifer revealed the complete truth: her relationship with Marcus, the pregnancy, his cruel rejection, and the struggles of those early years. Olivia listened in silence, tears streaming down her face as she learned the full story of her origins. "He offered you money to get rid of me?" Olivia finally asked, her voice small. "Yes," Jennifer answered honestly, "but his failure to recognize your value then doesn't diminish who you are now. I never told you because I didn't want that rejection to shape your sense of self-worth. Why did you put his name on my birth certificate if he didn't want me? Because someday, I thought you might want to know where you came from. I wanted that to be your choice, not mine." Olivia wiped her tears, processing everything she'd learned. "He knows about me now. The way he looked at me last night. He recognized himself in me, didn't he?" Jennifer nodded. "Yes, I believe he did." "What do we do now?" Olivia asked, vulnerability and strength equally present in her voice. Jennifer took her daughter's hands. "That depends on you. If you want to know him, I won't stand in your way. If you don't, that's completely your right. The decision is yours." "I need time to think," Olivia said quietly. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Marcus was facing his own storm. His girlfriend Elise had seen the Page 6 article and demanded explanations over breakfast. "Who is she to you? And why were you looking at that girl like you'd seen a ghost?" she asked, sliding her tablet across the table to show the photos. "It's complicated," Marcus replied, his mind elsewhere. "Uncomplicate it," Elise snapped. Before he could respond, his phone rang. The board of the foundation calling an emergency meeting to discuss the potential public relations implications of the gossip column speculation. The Blackwood Foundation couldn't afford another scandal, not after the financial irregularities that had tarnished the family name in recent years. But Marcus barely registered these immediate concerns. His mind was consumed by the revelation of Olivia, the daughter he never knew, the extraordinary young woman who carried his genes but owed him nothing. An obsession took hold, drowning out all other considerations. He had to learn everything about her, about the life he'd missed. Within hours, Marcus had hired private investigators to compile everything available about Jennifer and Olivia Collins. The reports began arriving by afternoon. Jennifer's meteoric rise from primary school teacher to education technology magnate. Olivia's academic achievements, coding competition wins, recognition as one of New York's most promising young scientists. Articles celebrating the mother-daughter duo revolutionizing educational access. One detail particularly stung. Jennifer Collins's estimated net worth was now $1.6 billion, more than 5 times what remained of the Blackwood fortune after the financial scandals. 3 days later, Marcus appeared unannounced at the headquarters of Collins Educational Technology. The receptionist informed him that Jennifer was in a board meeting. "Please ensure she receives this," he said, handing over a heavy envelope. When Jennifer opened the envelope in her office that afternoon, she found legal documents transferring stocks and properties to a trust in Olivia's name, effectively offering tens of millions of dollars. She stared at the papers for a long moment before picking up the phone and calling Marcus directly. "We're not interested in your money, Marcus," she said when he answered. "It's not about money," he replied, desperation evident in his voice. "It's about acknowledgement, about giving Olivia what's rightfully hers. Olivia already has everything she needs. I built this for her. Please, Jennifer, 15 minutes. That's all I'm asking." In the taxi back to her apartment that evening, Jennifer was still weighing Marcus's request when Olivia asked quietly, "Was that him on the phone earlier? My father?" Jennifer nodded, watching her daughter carefully. "I think I want to meet him," Olivia said. "Not because I need him, but because I want to understand." The next day, in a discreet cafe in Soho, Marcus arrived 30 minutes early, nervously adjusting his tie as he waited. When Jennifer entered, his heart raced with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "Thank you for coming," he said as she took a seat across from him. "Be brief," she replied, her expression guarded. "I made the biggest mistake of my life 15 years ago," Marcus began, his voice low and intense. "There aren't enough apologies in the world, I know that. But I want a chance with Olivia. I want to know her, support her." "Support her?" Jennifer interrupted, incredulity sharpening her tone. "She doesn't need your support, Marcus. She has a university account with 7 figures. She has pending patents that will be worth millions. What exactly do you think you can offer her now?" "A father," he whispered, the word hanging between them. "A father isn't just biology," Jennifer replied, leaning forward. "It's presence. It's sleepless nights with fevers, helping with homework, showing up for school recitals. Where were you when she broke her arm at 7, or when she was bullied for not having a father on Father's Day?" Marcus lowered his head, defeated. "I can't change the past. No, you can't. And I won't change my present to accommodate your belated regret." "Then what do you suggest?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "I wrote your name on her birth certificate. Legally, you're her father. If Olivia decides she wants to know you, I'll respect that. But don't push. Don't use money. And understand one thing. You may eventually become part of her life, but you'll never be part of mine." In the taxi back home, Jennifer didn't realize she was planting the seed of an obsession that would consume Marcus in the coming years, discovering how the woman he had discarded had transformed into a business force now moving in the same circles as himself. The morning sun streamed through the penthouse windows as Jennifer's phone chimed with a text message. She reached for it groggily, the events of the previous night still swirling in her mind. The message from her publicist was brief but alarming. "Check your email immediately. Page 6 has photos." Jennifer slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Olivia, and padded quietly to the living room. Opening her laptop, she found the email waiting in her inbox, its subject line glaring at her. "Urgent, page 6. Questioning if there's history between you and Blackwood. How to proceed." With a deepening sense of dread, she clicked on the attachment. The photos captured her tense exchange with Marcus, his desperate expression as he pleaded with her, Olivia's approach, and most damning of all, the unmistakable shock on Marcus's face as he stared at the girl who so clearly resembled him. The accompanying text speculated about a mysterious past connection between the entrepreneur of the year and the former real estate mogul. Jennifer closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had always known this day might come, but had hoped to control the timing, to prepare Olivia properly. Now, circumstances were forcing her hand. For 15 years, she had protected Olivia from the truth of her father's rejection, offering age-appropriate explanations that emphasized their complete family of 2 rather than what they lacked. But at 15, Olivia was too perceptive, too intelligent to be shielded any longer, especially with the evidence now splashed across gossip columns. When Olivia emerged from her bedroom an hour later, Jennifer had already made coffee and arranged herself on the sofa, mentally rehearsing what she would say. "Good morning," Olivia yawned, heading for the kitchen. "Liv, can you come sit with me for a minute? We need to talk about last night." Olivia paused, studying her mother's expression before joining her on the sofa. "About Mr. Blackwood?" she asked directly. Jennifer nodded, momentarily surprised by her daughter's perception. "There's something I've never told you about your father." As their private jet soared toward San Francisco later that morning, Jennifer revealed the complete story. Her relationship with Marcus, the pregnancy announcement, his cruel rejection, the financial struggles that followed. She described the tiny room in Queens, the exhaustion of working 2 jobs while pregnant, the nights spent studying with Olivia asleep on her chest. Olivia listened in silence, tears streaming down her face as she learned the full truth of her origins. "He offered you money to get rid of me?" she finally asked, her voice small despite her usual confidence. "Yes, Jennifer answered honestly. "But his failure to recognize your value then doesn't diminish who you are now. I never told you, because I didn't want that rejection to shape your sense of self-worth." Olivia wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Why did you put his name on my birth certificate if he didn't want me?" "Because someday I thought you might want to know where you came from. I wanted that to be your choice, not mine." Olivia nodded slowly, processing everything she'd learned. "He knows about me now. The way he looked at me last night. He recognized himself in me, didn't he?" "Yes," Jennifer confirmed. "I believe he did." "What do we do now?" Olivia asked, vulnerability and strength equally present in her voice. Jennifer took her daughter's hands in her own. "That depends on you. If you want to know him, I won't stand in your way. If you don't, that's completely your right. The decision is yours." "I need time to think," Olivia said quietly, turning to gaze out the window at the clouds below. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Marcus faced his own storm. His girlfriend Elise confronted him over breakfast, sliding her tablet across the table to display the Page 6 article. "Who is she to you? And why were you looking at that girl like you'd seen a ghost?" she demanded, her perfectly manicured finger tapping on the screen. "It's complicated," Marcus replied distantly, his mind still processing the events of the previous night. "Uncomplicated," Elise snapped. Before he could respond, his phone rang. The board of the Blackwood Foundation calling an emergency meeting to discuss the potential public relations implications of the gossip column speculation. The foundation, a remnant of the once mighty Blackwood empire, couldn't afford another scandal, not after the financial irregularities that had tarnished the family name in recent years. But Marcus barely registered these immediate concerns. His mind was consumed by the revelation of Olivia, the brilliant young woman who carried his genes but owed him nothing. An obsession took hold, drowning out all other considerations. He had to learn everything about her, about the life he'd missed. Within hours, Marcus had hired private investigators to compile all available information on Jennifer and Olivia Collins. The reports began arriving by afternoon. Jennifer's meteoric rise from primary school teacher to education technology magnate, Olivia's academic achievements, coding competition wins, recognition as one of New York's most promising young scientists, articles celebrating the mother-daughter duo revolutionizing educational access. One detail particularly stung. Jennifer Collins's estimated net worth was now $1.6 billion, more than 5 times what remained of the Blackwood fortune after the financial scandals. 3 days later, Marcus appeared unannounced at the headquarters of Collins Educational Technology. The receptionist informed him that Jennifer was in a board meeting. "Please ensure she receives this," he said, handing over a heavy envelope before leaving. When Jennifer opened the envelope in her office that afternoon, she found legal documents transferring stocks and properties to a trust in Olivia's name, effectively offering tens of millions of dollars. She stared at the papers for a long moment before picking up the phone and calling Marcus directly. "We're not interested in your money, Marcus," she said when he answered. "It's not about money," he replied, desperation evident in his voice. "It's about acknowledgement, about giving Olivia what's rightfully hers. Olivia already has everything she needs. I built this for her. Please, Jennifer, 15 minutes, that's all I'm asking." After a long pause, Jennifer reluctantly agreed to meet him the following day. In the taxi back to her apartment that evening, Jennifer was still weighing the wisdom of her decision when Olivia asked quietly, "Was that him on the phone earlier? My father?" Jennifer nodded, watching her daughter carefully. "I think I want to meet him," Olivia said. "Not because I need him, but because I want to understand." The next day, in a discreet cafe in Soho, Marcus arrived 30 minutes early, nervously adjusting his tie as he waited. When Jennifer entered, his heart raced with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "Thank you for coming," he said as she took a seat across from him. "Be brief," she replied, her expression guarded. I made the biggest mistake of my life 15 years ago, Marcus began, his voice low and intense. There aren't enough apologies in the world, I know that. But I want a chance with Olivia. I want to know her, support her. Support her? Jennifer interrupted, incredulity sharpening her tone. She doesn't need your support, Marcus. She has a university account with 7 figures. She has pending patents that will be worth millions. What exactly do you think you can offer her now? A father, he whispered, the word hanging between them. Jennifer's eyes flashed. A father isn't just biology, it's presence. It's sleepless nights with fevers, helping with homework, showing up for school recitals. Where were you when she broke her arm at 7? Or when she was bullied for not having a father on Father's Day? Each question struck Marcus like a physical blow. Images of the milestones he'd missed, first steps, first words, first day of school, flashed through his mind, each a reminder of his catastrophic choice. I can't change the past, he said, his voice breaking. No, you can't, Jennifer agreed, and I won't change my present to accommodate your belated regret. Then what do you suggest? He asked, defeated. Jennifer studied him for a long moment. I wrote your name on her birth certificate. Legally, you're her father. If Olivia decides she wants to know you, I'll respect that. But don't push, don't use money, and understand one thing. You may eventually become part of her life, but you'll never be part of mine. 2 weeks later, Jennifer accompanied Olivia to a restaurant in Manhattan. The girl had finally decided she wanted to meet Marcus, to form her own impressions rather than rely solely on the painful history her mother had shared. Are you sure about this? Jennifer asked as they stood outside the upscale Italian restaurant. Olivia nodded, her expression resolute. I need to do this. For me. I'll be at the bar if you need me, Jennifer said, squeezing her daughter's hand before stepping back. She watched as Olivia approached the table where Marcus waited, his nervous anticipation visible even from a distance. Father and daughter, strangers connected by blood, faced each other for the first time with full awareness of their relationship. Jennifer observed from afar as they talked, noting Olivia's reserved posture gradually relaxing as the conversation progressed. Marcus appeared to be listening intently, occasionally nodding, his expression shifting between wonder, regret, and cautious hope. After an hour, Olivia returned to where Jennifer waited, her expression thoughtful. How was it? Jennifer asked carefully. Strange, Olivia replied, her brow furrowed. He seems desperate, like I'm his last chance at redemption. Jennifer nodded, understanding exactly what her daughter meant. You're not responsible for his redemption, sweetheart. I know, Olivia said. I told him I'd be willing to meet occasionally, but that I needed time and space. He agreed to everything. He seems afraid I'll disappear. In the following week, Forbes magazine published its annual list of the wealthiest Americans. Jennifer Collins appeared prominently, her estimated fortune now exceeding what the Blackwood Empire had been worth at its peak. The accompanying article noted that Collins built her empire while single-handedly raising a prodigy daughter, refusing to accept limitations or definitions imposed by others. Marcus read the article in his increasingly modest Upper East Side apartment. The realization of what he had lost that night in Brooklyn 15 years earlier finally crystallized with devastating clarity. Not just a family, but an empire, a partnership, a life of meaning. Meanwhile, Jennifer finalized details for Collins Educational Technologies' international expansion. In her office overlooking the city, she was no longer defined by abandonment or by the need to prove her worth. Instead, she looked toward the future, not as the woman Marcus Blackwood had rejected, but as the visionary who had transformed global education. When Olivia entered her office later that afternoon, Jennifer smiled warmly. Ready to revolutionize the world? Always, Olivia replied with the confidence of someone who had never been taught to doubt her worth. Mother and daughter stood together at the window, their reflections superimposed on the city skyline that had once seemed so insurmountable. Jennifer's true triumph wasn't overcoming Marcus Blackwood, but discovering that her story never needed to include him to be extraordinary. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen